As all of you know, yesterday and day before, we had a Polit Bureau meeting. And in that Polit Bureau meeting, we discussed the current political situation, the various issues of importance, and on these various matters, I'll just briefly explain what is our decision. The all opposition party meeting at Patna was attended by 15 opposition parties. And the general consensus there was that we should all work together to save the character of the Indian Republic, that is, its secular democratic republic, the Constitution of India, democracy, civil rights, and human rights, which are guaranteed by the Constitution as fundamental rights. In defense of all this, to safeguard it is necessary today to ensure that the Modi government, which is mounting an assault on all these aspects, they are separated from controlling the government and state power. So that with that objective, all the parties decided that we shall cooperate. And how that cooperation will be, that will be carried forward in subsequent meetings. And it's already decided that we'll meet sometime in the middle of July in Shimla. And the process of meetings will continue. As far as the CPIM is concerned, we have suggested a three-pronged approach to attain this objective. Firstly, on issues of national importance, like defense of our constitution, against the politics of hate and terror that are sharpening communal polarization, in defense of democratic rights and civil liberties, on all such issues, that we should conduct a national campaign jointly by going through to various important centers in the country and holding public meetings. Second, on issues of people's livelihood. We have the highest levels of unemployment now. Inflation continues to wreak havoc on people's livelihoods. The overall economy is still not progressing the way it should in order to provide relief to the people. Inequalities are soaring, with 1% of our population cornering more than 40% of the wealth that was added to the country in the last 2 years, while the bottom 50% gets only 3% of this wealth. So rich getting richer, poor getting poorer, and all such issues to conduct protest actions all over the country, and that all those who are willing to join, all the parties, they must jointly conduct such protest actions. Thirdly, in every state, the situation is different, and given the concrete conditions in each state, the parties who are present there in Patna decided that talks should begin at the state level in order to work out electoral arrangements. It could be a front like it's there in Tamil Nadu today, or in Bihar today, or in Maharashtra today. It could be electoral adjustments. It could be electoral understandings. But whatever it be, depending on the concrete situation in the states, the process of beginning to arrive at such an understanding must begin immediately. And that will naturally be dependent on the state level specific situations, which are not the same. So this is what we think is the direction in which we should proceed in order to ensure that we can safeguard the character of our republic, the constitution, democracy, and democratic rights and civil liberties of the people. So this was the first issue that was discussed. Then the issue of the continuing ethnic violence in Manipur. The Polit Bureau expressed its very, very grave concern that it is now continuing for more than 7 weeks, and there seems to be no abatement of this violence. Even today, there have been attacks that are going on, the armories are being raided, the arms and ammunition that is being seized is being used. It has reached an extent where drones are being used by opposing groups to check on each other's positions. Police wireless sets are being used by them to communicate. It's a situation which has been allowed to drift to such a crisis point by the Modi government. And we are shocked. In fact, we are very, very deeply shocked that the Prime Minister has not uttered a word on this situation so far. The Home Minister goes there after 26 days, sets up some peace committees that are completely useless and infructuous. The all-party meeting that was called on the 23rd, that produced no results, and the government was obdurate on the question of removing the Chief Minister of Manipur, Biren Singh, whose complicity and incompetence has allowed the situation to degenerate to these levels. So the CPIM immediately demands that this government, state government, must be dismissed. This is the double-engine government that is so much propagated by the BJP, Prime Minister, Home Minister. And this is the state of its affairs there in Manipur. This government must go, Biren Singh government. That's the first step. And then all measures must be undertaken by the Modi government to ensure that peace and normalcy returns. We don't think that this is a matter in which there can be any prevarication. This is a very sensitive border state, and it has implications that go beyond what we are discussing now, that have the danger of going beyond. So therefore, it has to be urgently addressed. And the BJP's political bargaining with one identity group or the other, and their effort to now try and communalize the situation by saying that this is a clash between the Hindu Maitis and the Christian Kookies, is only going to worsen the matter further. In the interest of the country, the BJP must stop its communal polarization tactics in Manipur and restore peace and normalcy. That's absolutely important. Thirdly, with regard to Prime Minister Modi's visit to the USA. This visit to the USA is very clear that the Biden administration in the USA has prioritized its relations with India as an important element of the US hegemonic drive, global hegemonic drive, which requires that USA should be able to isolate China. So India, the USA feels, is an important element in that process. And the Modi government has willingly surrendered to US pressures and become a very subordinate junior partner of US imperialism's global strategies. The deals that were struck during this visit are mainly military and defense deals. India has already been declared as a major defense partner of the USA. And now the production of these jet engines, joint production of jet engines in India, comes on top of all these earlier deals and agreements, and many more are in the offing. So in the process of wanting India to be strong to take on China in the region, US administration and Biden administration has completely ignored and glossed over the human rights record and the decline in democracy in India to the status of being characterized as an electoral autocracy. This has entirely been not merely ignored, but completely bypassed by the Biden administration. But this is an issue that has been raised by various sections in the USA. 75 congressmen have written on these issues to the president, including former President Barack Obama, who's being trolled by the RSS BJP here in India for what he said that he would have told Prime Minister Modi on the human rights record of India. All this clearly shows that there is in the USA a public opinion that has been built up, dismayed at the falling levels of democracy and human rights in India. I mean, he follows one motto that whenever he is abroad, Prime Minister Modi, it is Gandhiji. Whenever he is in India, it is Godse. That is Modi's dictum. Abroad, Gandhiji; in India, Godse. And that is what you've seen that whole thing of at the bust of Gandhiji in the United Nations complex that he did. But in any way, we think that with this visit and the deals that have been struck, India has cemented its role as a subordinate junior partner of US imperialism in its global hegemonic designs, which is the virtual abandonment of India's independent foreign policy. And that, in the long term, is not in India's interests. Next, we discuss this entire exercise that now being conducted again by the Law Commission under Modi government's direction to create conditions for a uniform civil code. The last Law Commission undertook this exercise and in 2018 concluded, after 2 years of consultations, from 2016 to 2018, 2 years after that it concluded that a uniform civil code is neither necessary nor desirable at this stage. This is the Law Commission's conclusion. And we concurred with that conclusion. But what we are saying is that uniformity is not equality. We have been championing the CPIM for equal rights for women of all communities. And we have been champion for all citizens, irrespective of caste, creed, or gender. And this can be achieved through reform of personal or customary laws applicable to different communities, with active discussion and democratic participation of both men and women of these communities. That is the process that needs to be initiated, not to impose from above a uniform civil code. What it actually means is also very, very unclear. So therefore, we have said that this exercise is meaningless. You ensure guaranteeing the equality for women in particular, for all citizens, and whatever be the personal or customary laws in each community, different communities, that should be discussed for reform within the people of that community. And that is the way it should proceed. The Polit Bureau, the next issue was the Polit Bureau demanded that the RBI withdraw its circular, whereby it is permitting now to allow willful defaulters of loans taken from the banks to negotiate with the banks a compromise settlement, meaning they will not return the full loan, but they'll return part of the loan. Now, what is the definition of willful defaulter? A willful defaulter is a person who has the capacity to repay, but is not repaying. That is, he or she is committing a criminal offense. Instead of taking action against those who commit criminal offenses, you are legalizing the process of loot of people's savings and bank deposits. Now, this is something completely unacceptable. The Polit Bureau demanded that the properties of these willful defaulters be confiscated and recover all these loans. Already more than 11 lakh crores of rupees of loans have been written off by the Modi government. 11 lakh crores. And now, with this legalization, more loot of people's savings. This is something not acceptable. The next issue the Polit Bureau decided was that in a most undemocratic manner, the center has directed, Modi government has directed the Food Corporation of India not to sell rice to the state governments. This is absurd. I mean, we've never heard of this. I mean, Food Corporation of India's job is that when the state governments require it for the public distribution system or any scheme that the state government may want to use, they draw upon this, what has been procured. And this is something that the central government has unilaterally now stopped. Clearly, this is aimed at non-BJP state governments who will not be permitted now to implement the promises that they made to the people of providing relief to them. Now, if this is the case, we think this is absolutely undemocratic, and immediately the supply of rice to the state governments must be restored. The Prime Minister and the Centre draw from the same procured stock in order to fulfill the schemes of providing 5 kg of rice to people below the poverty line. But why are you and how can you deprive the states? So this is something that has to be immediately restored. The other issue that the Polit Bureau discussed is a very dangerous rule has now been adopted and being implemented by the central government. A rule that is forcing the state governments to install this smart meters for electricity consumption. And smart meters are those that is with a prepaid arrangement. That is, you pay beforehand what you're likely to consume. And if these sort of things come in, and these meters become compulsory as they are now, this rule declares, the state government's responsibility to distribute power to the consumers, that distribution is now to be done by private corporates, and these machines will be the method through which they collect their profits and their revenue. Who are the biggest beneficiaries among the private corporates? There's no need to tell you, all of you know. Including these machines, what you call the smart meters. The smart meters are also produced by the same corporate who will do the distribution of electricity. The Adani Group, since they are the ones, the meters are produced by them, the electricity will be distributed by them, and the profits will be garnered by them. And the state abdicates its responsibility. This is unacceptable. Then we are very concerned about the manner in which delimitation exercise was undertaken in Assam. Normally, delimitation is done for the country as a whole. Under special circumstances, they did this for J&K earlier, now for Assam. And what is very strange in Assam is that this delimitation was done on the basis of 2001 census, when today we are in 2023. The population has changed, the population mix has changed, the population numbers have changed, and on what basis is this scientific, we don't know. And now, even normally delimitation is done by constituting a delimitation commission. No commission was constituted. The Election Commission of India, they conducted this exercise unilaterally, and they did it. And clearly the whole exercise dovetails to the communal polarization that the BJP is seeking in the northeast, particularly in Assam. And this delimitation exercise is aimed at that. That's why it was rushed through before the elections, and they want to do it. This, we think, is not only unscientific, but it is politically loaded to generate a lot of dissatisfaction and mischief. Then this, most unfortunately, is actually a dismaying situation that the wrestlers of India who earn India prestige by winning medals at international events, their protests against sexual harassment by the chief of that association, that continues without the government responding adequately. Even the POSCO case that was registered, there so much time was provided to proceed on that FIR that the complainant, a minor girl, could be persuaded, so to speak, to withdraw that complaint. We think this is not acceptable under the POSCO Act. The issue FIR has to be acted upon immediately. But no, that was not done. You give them time so that they are persuaded to withdraw. And this is something unacceptable. We have reiterated that the head of the Wrestlers Federation of India, a BJP MP, multiple times MP, on the basis of these charges must be arrested and the criminal proceedings against them must proceed. Now you have the West Bengal Panchayat elections that are going on. So far, 10 people have died in the violence, including one very young, active CPIM leader, Mansoor Alam. And Mansoor Alam was attacked and finally succumbed to his injuries in Dinajpur district of Bengal. And this politics of terror and violence through which the last elections in 2018 were conducted, that is what is sought to be repeated now. But the difference this time is that there is people's resistance that has grown. People's resistance has grown. Last time there were 34% of the seats that went uncontested. Now that has come down to almost 2/3 of that figure. We'll know the final thing soon. But it's by more than 2/3 it has declined. That means the resistance is there. The people are on the move for a people's panchayat, not an official panchayat that is sponsored through violence and terror by the TMC, the state government, with the connivance of the police and the administration. So we have demanded that all peace-loving forces who value democracy, they must all together resist this politics of terror and violence and ensure that there is a people's panchayat system that is elected in Bengal. Finally, we find it, Polit Bureau found it very strange that the national family health surveys that are periodically conducted, for the 6th of that survey, very mysteriously and with some purpose, obviously, the Modi government has directed them to delete the questions on the disability issue, which is normally collected by the earlier, all the 5 surveys which were conducted earlier. And disability related questions, they have now said they will not be part of this survey. We think this is absolute discrimination against the disabled people. By law, they are protected, they have their rights, and therefore the disability related questions should be restored as part of the survey. So these are the important issues we have discussed in the Polit Bureau. The next Central Committee meeting is scheduled now to be held from the 4th to the 6th of August. And they will carry forward this process of how to concretize the pooling of the maximization of the pooling of the anti-BJP votes, or in other words, necessary to safeguard India's constitution, democracy, and the character, the secular democratic character of our republic. That is the major priority, and for that we shall continue to work in cooperation with all the parties which are willing to come forward to safeguard our constitution, democracy, and the character of the Indian Republic.